Hey, good morning, Bold Christians. Again, it's me, Mac Attack. I'm coming to you today just to have open dialogue and conversation. I want to start today off by saying I'm sending special prayers down to my parents, all of my family in South Carolina, all of my friends and family in Savannah, Georgia, and also my sister, brothers, nephews in Florida as we brace ourselves for what we don't know what is to come of the storm that's headed our way. But what we do know is that the Lord is still in charge of our lives, and He can take the sting out of the storm. If He can tell the raging waters, peace, be still, He can do it again. So let's brace ourselves as we go forward. Today, I want to come forth and have a conversation based on a conversation that I had with a young lady early this morning. I feel like going on. We sometimes have to continue to tell ourselves that God is still in charge of our lives, and we feel like going on. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Five Heartbeats. And one of the characters in that movie that jumps off the screen to you is Eddie Kane Jr. And as we all know, Eddie had some problems that he was dealing with in the movie, just like life. Even though the movie wasn't true, it's still the same problems that we deal with in life. Some of us deal with it on a different scale. But Eddie's problem was the fact that he rose to stardom. He was lifted and elevated, but along his journey, the trials and tribulations of life reached out and tripped him up. And if you know anything about the movie, his hindrance was drugs. And we saw the effect that drugs had on his life. While he was doing good, everybody surrounded him. The women, the men, everybody wanted to be close to him, but they wasn't a help to him. They was a hindrance. They kept feeding him and feeding him until the drugs tripped his life up, people. And it does the same thing to us. And when it trips you up, people, it takes you out. But the good thing about the God that we serve, He allows us to have a comeback. And He allows us to put ourselves in position to say that I feel like going on. And God will take you through these things, people. And Eddie came back within this movie. And isn't that just like our lives sometimes? We get so caught up in things. Some of us get caught up in relationships. Some of us get caught up in alcohol. Some of us, even just like Eddie, get caught up in drugs. But people, what happens when the people of life who are supposed to be given an encouraging word, preachers? What happens with people in life who's supposed to be given some guidance, parents? What happens when people in life supposed to be the strength, husbands, wives? What happens when they close their doors and they need some encouragement? What happens when they need to hear a word? What happens when they need that push to let them know that everything is going to be all right? We don't think about that, people. Preachers need it. Parents need it. Husbands need it. Wives need it. You show a strong face in front of everyone because they need to see the strength in you. But what happens when you need to be picked up? What happens when you close the door and you turn to that bottle and take one drink and say, I'm starting to feel a little better? What happens when you take that second drink? Say, okay, I got this. What happens when you take that third drink? Say, okay, then you are inebriated. Your worries and everything go away for that moment. But when you wake up in the morning, they're still there. You got to put on makeup. You got to put on a mask to go back out and face the public. What happens when you are dealing with those drugs and you're doing things just to get past the moment because everybody see you as a strong figure, but you need to be lifted up. You need to be supported in these moments. What happens with that child who is on the brink of suicide because of bullying? They're on the brink of suicide because their family don't have what other families have. People, we got to feel like going on. I'm going to tell you what happened. Nobody knows what goes on behind those closed doors. That's when we have to continue to get in the Word, people. We have to continue to talk to God and ask Him to encourage us, ask Him to lift us up. And people, we cannot take for granted that the face we see on the outside is the face that's on the inside, because people are beat up, people. People are worn down, people, but by the grace of God, they still go on. They put on a face and they still try to support you. They try to help you. But people, what we got to do is pray for people for what happens when they close their doors at night. What happens when they go home at night? What happens behind the scene? People, we got to feel like going on. Just like Eddie Kane Jr., we can make a comeback. We can go back to the house of the Lord, stand in that choir stand, stand in that pulpit, stand in them pews. But whatever we got to do, we can't give up. We got to say to ourselves, I feel like going on. Though the storms are raging, I feel like going on, people. So let's not downgrade people because of the face that we see that we think they got it all together. Because behind the scenes, somebody's hurting. Behind the scene, somebody needs some help. Behind the scene, somebody needs a push. So people, today, as we feel like going on, let's encourage one another. Let's sing that song, I feel like going on. Let's say those words, I feel like going on. Let's tell God, I feel like going on. You don't give up on God, and he won't give up on you. I feel like going on, bold Christians. Let's run on together. I feel like going on.